Good afternoon. It looks like people are coming in. I feel like the doors are open. Welcome, welcome. Find your virtual space, have a seat. We will be starting in our 60-second allotted time. While not everybody's in, so I can deny this to others. My daughter-in-law sent me a very cute text the other day. Now she's up north in Missouri, where it's still a little bit cold, or snow and ice on the ground means a little bit cold. And it said, if you blow on your coffee cup during your Zoom meeting, people will think it's iced tea and they'll never know it's wine. And I thought that was a very clever. So no, we don't have a coffee cup or the wine here, but we're
Okay, no problem.
Next slide.
you want
Uh-huh.
Kay is prepping. We got a couple waiting out there. If you want to get them.
Yeah.
So it appears 1 o'clock. We are right on time. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the February Landscape Inspectors Association Florida meeting. Thank you all for attending. We will watch and scrutinize as more and more people come in. It's super important that we get the word out to you about the guest speakers and about the education that we're offering. And it's very important to us that you all show and take on that education. Remember, those of you that are certified members, certified landscape inspectors, that you have to earn CEUs. The CEUs you need to earn, you are getting one every monthly meeting here, and that plays greatly into those overall you need. Kevin, 24 over 3 years?
24 over 3 years.
24 over 3 years, and I know Terrell is out there as well, and we kind of end up abusing Terrell because we don't know how many we've got, and especially when it comes down to the time to recertify, then we put the crush on him and Richard and things. So please, we ask that you take advantage of the education, the availability of things that go on at the monthly meetings. Make sure you register and so that you can get credit for it. Speaking of which, there is one person out there that we tried communicating with a little earlier. You're calling in from a 561. Richard, can you scroll down to that?
I don't see them in there.
Call it out. There was a 561 area code that showed up with no name behind it. If we don't have a name and you did not pre-register, there is no way we're going to be able to get you the CEUs that you're going to need down the road. So it makes it a little bit difficult. Okay. Outside of that, happy February. I hope you had a great Valentine's Day. I do want to real quickly, while we're waiting for a couple more people to show up, since those of you that received the flyer, and hopefully that was everybody. If you did not get the flyer announcing this monthly meeting, please send an email to through the website, through the LIAF website, stating you did not, and confirm, send me your email address so that we can send you the flyers so you know when the monthly meetings are. The monthly meetings are virtually always the last Thursday of the month, not the fourth Thursday, but the last Thursday of the month. There are some exceptions in November. Hopefully this November, we will be able to go back out to Weston to continue with the tree trimming. And of course, the December Christmas party, whatever we can work out there. The other month and seminars, those are the only exceptions. The other month will always be the last Thursday of the month. So you can put it on your calendar ahead of time. Will also tickle you with a reminder, a flyer that comes out. So make sure we've got your email address so we can send you the flyers. The flyer I sent out this month, I alluded to Whale Week, since that happened to be when I was putting it together. And to just put that quickly to finish off, would you allow Barbara in, please? I put together a couple questions. So, and Richard, you're going to have to handle this. As opposed to just throwing out general questions, to make this go a little quicker, I'm looking for a volunteer. How can they do? You could text us if you feel like you know a fair amount about whales, because I've got a couple simple whale type questions. So I'm sure somebody out there does. If you say, I'd like to take this, then we'll make you a co-host and ask you the questions. All right. So please sign on before we have to volunteer somebody. All right, time to volunteer somebody. Who do we think knows whales? Oh, Gerald.
Well,
Gerald's waiting.
Larry's not even here.
That's like the Three Stooges when two of them would step back and we're left one up four. Let's see how Gerald does before.
See if there's anybody.
Or
I
Donna?
was gonna say Donna.
Donna,
Donna knows
Go
a
ahead.
lot about a lot of stuff.
yeah. We think Donna's
How
smart.
do we get,
Let's build her up really big right now.
Yeah.
Make Donna co-host.
Make Donna a
I'm
co-host.
not always spot, there we are. Just separate out these windows is what I need to do.
Ah,
Hi, Donna.
Hi, what are you signing me up for?
Congratulations.
See, you're so good for just not coming on and saying, no, whatever's going on, stop, no. Donna, as you saw in the flyer, the announcement, we were celebrating Whale Week.
Yeah,
You as a knowledgeable person, in pretty much all things green, I thought, as opposed to just throwing these questions out to the general public, we will ask you. So you can speak for all of LIF, all of the green industry, UF, IFAS, any other groups we can throw out there. How's that?
so you mean you're gonna ask me questions and I'm the only one that's gonna get to answer
Yeah.
them? That's putting a whole lot of faith in me. Okay,
And if you get them right, we all get pizza.
Yeah.
I'm game, but I mean, I don't know if I know all that much about whales, but I'll try.
These are not too terribly bad. The first one's one of the tougher ones, though, so I'll make that number 2. So what's the largest animal on the planet? Obviously, it's a whale. You know what kind of whale it is?
Sperm whale? How about if I can ask, like on the game shows, when I can ask people to put in the chat what the answer is?
Yeah, Greg.
I
just
think
said
Greg
it.
just did.
You can phone a friend. Yes.
Greg
Put it
just
in the
did
chat,
it.
guys.
Oh, good, Greg.
The blue whale, the blue whale.
Good call.
Thank
So-
you.
Basically, blue whale, from some of the stuff I looked at, that they can live up 80 to 100 years. So they're kind of like the live oak out there, and they weigh 44 and 41,000 pounds. So that's a pretty good size animal. So this one's a little tougher, and Greg or anybody that feel like they need to help Donna, unless Donna knows this. So in general, whales are divided into 2 main groups. What are the 2 main groups of whales?
My friends out there? Oh, baleen and toothed.
Ah, and basal, good. Wow, nothing like help from the future here. Yes,
All these
indeed.
biology people, all right.
Please double check me on that.
No, absolutely. I double checked me before I wrote them, so basal is tooth. And obviously tooth can eat fish or squid, and baleen just have that fibrous baleen pellet, and they eat plankton and crustaceans. All right, number 3, killer whales are not actually whales. They're a relative, what is their closely related group? They're not whales.
Dolphin, related to dolphins?
Nicely done.
That I knew, that I did know.
You were down here long enough to know Flipper, so take that, Flipper. And whales are very long-lived. They average between the short end 20, but some 100 years. The
Wow.
bowhead whale can live up to 200 years. How
Wow.
do scientists estimate the age of a whale? This you get an asterisk and a gold star and several
Oh
other
my
things.
gosh, anybody out there? Are my biology
Pulled
freaks?
out the other one.
Rings?
Oh,
It is-
Greg said maybe tailfin?
No, Kevin said rings, and it is related to rings. But trees use tree rings. Whales use earwax.
Earwax.
Earwax. Oh my goodness, wow.
I would rather count live oak rings myself personally, but if you're into whales, wax it is.
That's
Okay.
very interesting. I like it.
All right, happy whale week, everybody. So
All right,
you can move
guys.
down the back, and Kevin, I'm gonna turn it over to you so you can introduce Kay. And again, welcome, everybody. We're really glad you're here. If you have questions, you can write them in the message. We will ask Kay and Basil after they've finished. They will have time for Q&A if they want to, or we will address them at that point. So Kevin, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, Bill. Well, I'm very happy to introduce Kay Ferrara. She's a volunteer for the Florida Trail Association. The organization's been around for over 50 years. They monitor and maintain over 1,500 miles of trails throughout Florida. There's chapters all through the state that serve specific sections, and they deal with over 103 landowners individually with terms to access all of these locations. So it's a really complex and interesting bit of business. Without further ado, Kay Ferrara.
Thank you. But go ahead and share my screen. Oops, what happened here? Sorry. It was ready to go. Oh, wow. Okay, give me a moment. Oops. Okay, all right. Well, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me to your organization. I'm really excited. I'm always happy to do a presentation for Florida Trail. It's considered one of the best kept secrets in Florida. It is a hiking trail. Florida Trail is a 501c nonprofit organization. And one of our missions is to develop and maintain a foot trail throughout the state of Florida. We do that in conjunction with a lot of different landowners. Currently, we deal with 103 landowners. That could be from private owners to state parks. And our primary agency that we partner with is the U.S. Forest Service. The Florida National Scenic Trail is approximately 1,500 miles of trail that starts down, well, it starts at the north at the Gulf Island seashore, which is in Pensacola, and it ends at Big Cypress National Preserve down on Tamiami Highway 41. The other part of our mission is environmental education. We do that by leading activities into the various trails throughout Florida. They could be day hikes, we could do camping, paddling trips. So we're always involved in doing things in the outdoors. And once again, I want to stress that we are all volunteers. I'm showing two different logos here on the left side of your screen. The top one, the brown and orange, is the Florida Trail symbol. And then the other one is the Florida National Scenic Trail. We have two different trail systems out there, but commonly we just say the Florida Trail, and you'll find me saying that throughout the whole presentation. So the Florida Trail, the Florida National Scenic Trail, like I said, is 1,500 miles of a footprint. And it's represented on this map here by the orange line that goes, like I said, starts down in Big Cypress, goes up both sides of Lake Okeechobee, up through the central part of the state, and ends up on Pensacola Beach. It is a trail that has developed over the years. We started, it was founded in 1966, which makes us about 55 years old. And it became a Florida Trail and nationally recognized as a National Scenic Trail in 1983. Being recognized as a National Scenic Trail is important in maintaining the trail because of the funding involved. Our organization is based in Gainesville. We have approximately 4,500 paid volunteers. It is a membership organization, but we have other volunteers that just like to come out and do trail maintenance or get involved in our activities. We do not require membership. The trail is divided into 19 different chapters throughout the state, and each chapter maintains a section of the Florida Trail. And as I said, being designated as a National Scenic Trail is very important to us as far as funding. The U.S. Forest Service helps fund our trail equipment and supplies. And when we're on the trail working, we are under their workers' compensation policy, and also they will pay for the training that we need in order to maintain the trails. The National Trail system that we have out there, just so you know, is that it's a large system. There are 11 National Scenic Trails in the United States, and we are so happy and honored to have one of them in the state of Florida. Of course, I'm sure everyone has heard of the Appalachian Trail that starts down in Georgia and goes up through New England. That's the one most people are familiar with. And like I said, we have one here in Florida, and we're honored that we have it, and we're happy to maintain it. The great thing about the trail throughout the state of Florida, because Florida is such a diverse landscape, you see many different things, not only just in the environment itself. We have, the live oaks, you see the cypress domes, you see the scrubs, you see the pinelands, and of course the swamps and the rivers. So our trail will transverse through these different areas along the rivers, and it's always great to be out in nature. In addition to it, hiking on the trail is great for birders, We see many different, and any animals out there. There's tourists that we see, of course, the anhingas, the sandhill cranes, the hawks that are out there, the eagles, always excited to see an eagle, and the butterflies. And of course, the flowers and the plants. So a lot of you could probably tell me, I know that this is like a painted lady, this is an iris, but we see so many different plants out there, and it's always a pleasure if you're stressed to be out on the trail and bring you calmness throughout as you hike along. One of the things I talked about was environmental education. And like I said, we take people out hiking. This is a scene in Big Cypress National Preserve, and where we've taken the group out there. And one of the things too is also kayaking. We will take people out kayaking and also camping. So what we like to do is teach newbies. We call them newbies. They have never hiked or never kayaked or never camped. We're always happy to take them out and to teach them not only about the activity and the equipment that they need, but also about the environment. What I'm going to talk about mainly today, the area that of the National Scenic Trail that I want to talk about is the southern region here in South Florida, mainly because that's the area that I'm most familiar with. And there are 3 chapters down here that maintain this orange line that goes through here. That's approximately 125 miles of the trail. It starts once again down in Tamiami, goes up through the Big Cypress National Preserve. It then crosses across the Seminole Tribe Reservation and onto the South Florida Water Management District, onto the south rim of Lake Okeechobee. Once again, just giving you letting you know that we deal with 3 different land managers here in the South Florida area. There are 3 chapters. One is the alligator amblers. We all have little unique names, and they basically are housed, or they are stationed over in the south coast, the west coast, I'm sorry, of Florida. And on the east side of Florida is my chapter called the Happy Hoofers. And then in the south area are the Big Cypress chapter. And it's only divided up once again for the responsibility of what section of the trail that they maintain, and also for membership base. So that's why that is important. From there, our 4 primary habitats that we have here in South Florida is, first of all, the hardwood hammocks. And we start from the north and go south with approximately a 13-foot elevation. That's the highest that we have. Of course, that elevation allows for oaks and cabbage palms, maples, gumbo limbo. Those are the trees that we really love to camp in and really enjoy. And of course, they're the driest part of our trail. Once the wet days are approximately 10 to 45 days a year. Of course, there's some years that are a lot worse than that. Then we go into the pinelands. As you come a little further south, we have the saw palmetto, the mixed grass, of course, the slash pines. And once in our wet days for that area is usually 20 to 60 days a year. Going a little further south, we have the prairies. And this is where we get into the limestone and the karst. And this becomes and the sawgrass that we're all familiar with. And of course, they have a much longer wet season, approximately 50 to 150 days a year. And of course, the cypress swamps. Not only did we have the cypress swamps, we got cypress domes, there's strands, there's the dwarf cypress prairies. There's an area called Gator Hook down in Big Cypress that we spent a lot of time in. And of course, this is the wettest part of the trail with 160 to 200 days of wet. Right now, we kind of consider this area dry. It's the lowest as far as the water has been in years, and it's only approximately up to your knees. So we're very happy with that. Trail maintenance in Florida is different from other national scenic trails, especially the trails that are in the mountains and in the desert area. We deal with a lot of wet tropical environments. And because of that, our vegetation grows very, very fast. And we need to keep a corridor of 5 feet wide to 8 feet tall, clear for easy passage of the hikers. And once again, remember, our mission is to maintain that footpath for hikers. And so the trail maintenance on all sections of the trail is done yearly. And that's pretty much every foot of the 1,500 miles of trail. And then remember, our trail is maintained entirely by volunteers. And yes, some people call us crazy. We do get out there in the cold, sometimes hot, buggy time, but we want to make sure that people are able to transverse through the trail and that they enjoy it and it's a pleasant experience. And once again, here's a cypress dome for you. It's not a dome, but going through some of this, yes, there is water, and hiking through water can be a different experience than what most people are afraid of or aware of. They can be, one of the things that we get is that people are afraid of snakes and alligators. Yes, they are out there, and yes, we do see them, but also to remember and is that they're more afraid of us than we are of them. And when you're hiking in water, the vibration through the water, they feel that, and so they will go their own way and leave us alone. And all the years that I've been hiking out in Big Cypress in the swamp areas, I've never had an encounter, and I don't know of anyone ever having an encounter with a snake or with an alligator. So this is a dwarf prairie situation, and as you can see, yes, the paths are marked. You think it's just easy to follow, just follow along the path and just wade down the water. Well, there's many paths out there, because you have to remember, once again, there are animals out there such as deer that will also use or be in this area. So we want to make sure that the trail is blazed and marked properly so people find their way, and also make sure that the trail is clear so that hikers can go through there. And you see, once you get into the grasslands and the prairie, our tools change. Instead of using loppers, now we're into using weed whackers. And you see, once again, we're all geared up with PPE. It's required by the U.S. Forest Service that when we're working out on the trails, that we are protected. So not only do we have the helmets, the gloves, and the eyeglasses, they're also, if you're using other motorized equipment, there may be chaps involved. The trail is different throughout. This is the Seminole Tribe Reservation that the trail goes through. Once again, this is a landowner that we also work with. Every landowner that's out there works with this a little differently. The tribe is great. This trail here, especially in the middle, can, if it's not used on a continuous basis, the grass will grow and the trees will come in. The tribe will go out and they will mow this trail for us. Even on the trail on the left, the middle part of that little road, the grass will become quite high if it's not used on a continuous basis. So they do that for us. And then our responsibility becomes marking the trail to make sure that, once again, the hikers find their way and that there is no problems with any of the access through the trail. Part of the trail on the Seminole Tribe Reservation is what we call a road walk. We don't really enjoy it, but once again, that's the easiest access through that reservation. Up in the South Florida Water Management District, once again, you look at this and go, hey, that's really easy. But no, once again, we have to have this area has to be mowed. So the South Florida Water Management District is a great partner to work with. They mow along the trails to keep the grass down so that the hikers have no problems, issues going through. So our responsibility here on this section of the trail becomes, once again, the blazes, the orange marks that are here on this pole. And we did put in these poles, and also the signage. So once again, the hikers know where they're at and where they're going. Here's a section down in Big Cypress, another service road that we have. Big Cypress is another land manager that we work with, but we work with differently. They do not do any maintaining of the trails. So we go out once a year and we will mow down the middle of this road and on the sides to make sure that, once again, it's accessible for the hikers. So here's just another section. Sometimes the trails become simply footpaths through different areas. As you can see, they're using, the people on the left are using loppers. That's probably the tool that we use the most in clearing the trail. And on the right is our friendly alligator. That is not a real alligator, just so you know. He is down in the Big Cypress area along the trail. I don't know what the backstory is on him, but he's there. Just a statue, and we always stop by and we always say hello to him. So the trail, there is needs, as I mentioned before, the trail needs to be clear and needs be clear 5 feet wide, 8 feet high, and basically the footpath itself is 18 to 36 inches. So this is what we look for. So you look at a backpacker, a hiker that is wearing a large backpack and they're carrying everything on their back and they're doing a multi-day camping trip. They need to be able to get through here without any impediment to their equipment or to them. One of the things we talk about as far as following the trail is the orange blaze. The Florida National Scenic Trail blaze color is orange. If you go on to other national scenic trails, they'll have different colors, such as the Appalachian Trail, their blaze color is white. But we do orange, and there is a method to our madness. Okay, blazes are basically reinsurance mark, and they're 2 inches by 6 inches, basically the size of a dollar bill. They're supposed to be approximately 5 feet 5 inches off the ground. And you're supposed to be able to see them from either direction, whether you're going north, you're coming south, whichever, but they're there for people to find their way. And there is a method to our madness. There is what we call blaze communication. So if you start on your left, you'll see 3 blazes. And if you come upon this, this is the start of the trail. And then you travel along, hike along, and you continuously will see just single blazes. That means you're on the right path, just keep following the orange blazes. And then when you get to this, where you have 2 blazes, one on top of each other, but one is offset, the direction in which it's offset tells you there's a turn here. And so that's where you will turn. So this one would be turned to the right. The next one would be turned to the left. And then as you go along, you could also then come upon where the blazes will have different colors. Not only do we maintain 1,500 miles of the Florida National Scenic Trail throughout the state of Florida, we have side and loop trails that we also maintain. And those are marked different colors. They could be blue, red, or white, or yellow. So once again, if I come upon this sign here, I know there's a side trail here and it's blue. So if I want to go explore it, I would simply follow the blue blazes. And then as you come to the end of the trail, you have these 3 blazes here. Part of our mission is to make sure the signage, every landowner has their own sign requirements. This is in Big Cypress National Preserve. They allow brown signs. We put them on these metal poles. And once again, we mark them. And this is the Florida National Scenic Trail. So that's why you have the National Scenic Trail logo on this sign. And it gives you the mileage to the camp areas, to the parking lot, and also to other trails along the way. Some of the basic tools that we use, hand tools, are saws and loppers. Loppers probably being, once again, the biggest tool that we use, the most common one, just due to the terrain that we have. But we also get involved in power tools. So this is a crew that they're, once again, in the grasslands, they'll have lawnmowers. We will have trailers. We have enclosed trailers. We have utility trailers. So there's a lot of equipment involved in doing a trail maintenance. And as you can see, they're all wearing their PPE. Now, another tool, power tool that we use is the weed whacker. This is used pretty much everywhere. You can use it in water along the side of the trail, of course, in the grasslands. And then occasionally we will need to do a chainsaw. We'll have down trees on the trail, and so the trees will have to be removed. Please be aware that any chainsaw work that we do out there, you have to be certified. And once again, that's chainsaw certification is paid for by the U.S. Forest Service. We also do use hedge trimmers. And once again, in order to use a hedge trimmer, you have to be certified in the chainsaw and in this equipment. Even though we may not build bridges here in the South Florida, I wanted to let you know that this is one of the things that we also do. This is a swamp area that is very dry. So they got very lucky and took advantage of the dryness of this area, and they built this little walk path. Not quite sure what this type of bridge is called, but I know there is a name to it, but it allows the people to hike through this area without getting wet. Our bridge building can be something as simple as this to something like this. We can also go this way. We have done many of these bridges to some wet areas. And here's another crew. They're working out in St. Mark's, which is part of the Panhandle, putting together a little walking bridge. And the creme de creme of the bridges. This is a called the Monkey Creek Bridge. It's in the Apalachicola National Forest. This bridge was 2 years in the making. Not only did we have to do engineering plans, permits, and of course the funding, but then to get the volunteers to go out, it took them approximately, a crew went out and spent approximately 2 weeks or more to build this bridge over the Monkey Creek. To get our supplies sometimes out into these areas, once again, remember, there's not always service roads. There's a lot of times we have to hike into these areas to do trail maintenance. We go out, we'll sometimes spend up to a week in certain areas and to make sure that because you don't go out there that often. So sometimes the landowners, once again, will help us. This is down in Big Cypress. So the Big Cypress National Preserve has loaned us a buggy and a trailer. And so here is the crew loading up weed whackers and the gasoline and coolers and everything that they need for a long stay out in Big Cypress. The other way that we get into our area to get the supplies and the equipment that we need to build a bridge, whatever we may do, is just pure physical labor. We will hike in carrying pieces of lumber like these people are carrying here, or these 4x4 posts. We have put picnic tables at certain primitive camp areas that we hike into, and we will take that picnic table out piece by piece and then get it all out there and assemble it on site. So there are many things that we do to make the trail accessible and also to make the experience of using the trail very enjoyable for anyone that wants to go out there. One of the things that we also do is handling invasive plants. Now, how the invasive plants are removed or what we do with them, it once again depends upon the land managers. They will tell us, we will follow their regulations of how to remove anything that needs to be taken out. Of course, we deal with Brazilian pepper. That is a big one in the, especially the north section of Big Cypress. Once again, Big Cypress Management, they are handling this themselves with chemicals. We don't do anything with this. There's also air potato, Caesar weed, old world climbing vines. So those are things that we deal with as far as helping them and helping the environment. I talked about training. One of the U.S. Forest Service does pay for our training. We need to be prepared. Some of the areas, like I said, we go into is really what we call backcountry. And so if someone was to get hurt, that would be a very serious situation, and it may take some time to get help. So usually the crew leaders are trained in first aid, and there's also a wilderness first aid class that we go through. The other thing I talked about was the chainsaw certification. They schedule that training throughout the state of Florida in various locations 3 or 4 times a year. And we go and we work on that. That's usually a 3 or 4 day certification program. Those of you that are familiar with chainsaw, there's different levels, Sawyer A, B, and C. So even myself, I'm a Sawyer B, which I'm very proud of, to be able to go out and take down a tree if need be. And the last thing that we provide is trail skills training. We just don't hand someone a pair of loppers or a weed whacker and say, here, do it. There are certain requirements as far as the trail and also requiring safety of our workers. So it's very important that they understand that and that we're working safe. Our number one rule when we're out doing trail maintenance is working safe. So that is about our trail. One thing I wanted to show you was this little film I got for you. Please don't let it scare you off, but I thought you might enjoy seeing what it takes to get out into the backcountry to do some trail maintenance. So let's, see if I can get this up. Oops, sorry. Hang on. Sorry. Yeah, here.
We okay?
We lose you, Kay?
Everybody see that?
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Oh,
now we're,
I think you have to unshare your current thing and then share your new thing.
Say what again? I'm not getting that.
I
What was
think
that
you have to I think you have, if you're trying to share something else, I think you have to unshare what you're currently sharing and then share the new thing.
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
Can't share.
Unshare.
Share the screen
Okay.
share. Go to the- Okay.
So unshare what you're currently sharing.
Oh, okay, well, that's new. Okay, all right, let me just do that.
No problem. Because you can't share two things at once.
Okay. So am I good?
Now,
Can you see it?
We see it.
Yeah, well, she can't really make it bigger. That's
You see it?
Yes.
Okay. That's the end of my presentation.
Unmute her.
Okay, that was very good. That was excellent. Oh, go ahead and put, well, if you need the video, I'll just walk up here to here.
So
That was excellent. I don't think I'm going to be alone in saying I was not aware of your organization and the amount of work and the volunteers that have come together to make this sizable project happen. And it's a 50-year-old group, so it speaks volumes that has been together, and there have been people volunteering that long to pull this together. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Do have a couple questions for you if you've got a second, though.
okay, sure.
Is the entire trail able to be traversed year round? Or does the rainy season knock it out, or?
It depends, and it depends on what you want. Blackwell Bay is a swamp area that is in northern Florida. And right now it's very, very dry. So yes, it would be the time I would hike through there, but there's other people that like that swamp experience, so they're very disappointed that it's dry. And once again, and down in Big Cypress, the water level, it fluctuates. Some years, like I said, it can be very high, and then the other years it's very low. And this time of the year, the people are reporting it's only up to your knees. So actually, I'll be going down in about 2 weeks down to the Ivy Camp to help the chapter down there do some day maintenance with just a pair of loppers. So I will do that, but when it's higher, I don't go down there. It's too high for me.
So
There's a group of hikers, just so you know, that we call them through hikers. They start in January, usually the first weekend in January, and they will hike the whole 1,500 miles of trail continuously, and they will take 3 to 4 months depending on how fast they hike. And so that's usually about 30 to 45 people every year, and we support them. That's as they hike through the state and they get to different chapter areas. If they need something or someone should get hurt or whatever, we have what we call Trail Angel system. And there's a list of phone numbers that they can call and someone will go out and help them. I just recently went out and helped a young lady that had a problem with her tent. It blew away during one of the rainstorms we had. So drove out to the trail, took an hour and a half to drive out there and find her and bring her back into town so she could buy a tent. So those are things that we do on top of trail maintenance, and the environmental education is that some of us are trail angels to help the hikers through.
Very interesting. And that was one of my other questions, was there a annual trail hike where people traverse the entire trail?
Yes. Yes, there is. Every January they start off. Yes.
If people were wanting to hike it, is there a website or something they would look at to say this area is currently underwater, or this is a good time to go, or to get trail conditions, I guess?
Well, we suggest you contact the local trail coordinator or trail people. And I put it on the chat, was the website for the Florida Trail Association. If you go in there, you can find the link for chapters, and and they'll show you what areas. It's a map of the Florida, and shows in different colors the areas the chapters have. You click on that and you'll get some contact information. You're more than welcome to call whoever's listed and talk about the trail conditions. That's the best way to do it. Okay, and there is also website, Facebook pages. There's a Florida Alliance Facebook page that people will post information about trail conditions. So yes, that's the best ways to contact us.
I had a quick question. Is there a cell service all along the trail nowadays, or
I'm sorry.
is there like cellular phone service along the trail nowadays?
Some areas are great and some
I'm
aren't.
just curious.
It depends on your carrier. We do recommend some of the through hikers will have what they call a spot. It's just one of the brands. They're emergency beacons that
Okay.
they can, their loved ones back home can track them to see where they're at in the trail. And then also, if there's an emergency situation, they can push the button and, help will come. So yes, down in Big Cypress, should I give a plug for AT&T? I have no problems in cell reception. Other carriers, there are problems. So that's why it's good to go out with a group and everybody have different carriers, because someone's going to have reception.
Right.
There you go.
Right. And I see a question come in, was one I had as well. Are bikes or motorized vehicles allowed on the trail?
Once again, depends on the land manager. It just their own rules. In Big Cypress, south of I-75, okay, motorized use is allowed in that area. You have ORVs are allowed, especially because south of I-75, there's hunting. North of 75, there are no motorized use allowed on that trail. So that's difference there. Yes, bicycles are allowed. When you go on to the Seminole Tribe Reservation, you have to get a permit, which you to hike through there, and which you apply through the Florida Trail website, and that we handle for you. And then South Florida Water Management District, there are no restrictions as far as the hiking on that. And of course, you can't drive on that because there's gates everywhere. So unless you have a
Are there
key.
signs so that when you get to a point where you're not allowed to use a motorized vehicle, you know to stop, or you're just supposed to know, or?
You're basically supposed to know, basically the gates are up, and you know, it clearly indicates whether or not you can drive. The actual trail itself, okay, like I said, you can go into different areas with motorized vehicles, but you can't drive on a Florida National Scenic Trail. That is one of their requirements, is non-motorized use. So there were, yes, you can't drive on the actual Florida National Scenic Trail. Even though you saw in some of the photos, we had service roads. Those service roads would be for the park employees only. It would not be for the public.
And Richard, if Basil is still,
He can
co-host.
unmute himself if you want to.
and Basil has a question for you.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah,
thanks a lot for the really nice presentation. Thanks for your service. I've been utilizing some of those national trails and I love them, and you just made me want to go walk for a week. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah, anyway, so I have a silly question because I've never camped or I've never hiked a portion of a trail system like that that's underwater that long. Are there ways that people can traverse an area and actually do overnight camping? Do they rely on like hammocks, or is that just something people don't do?
No, there are camp areas. There's in pretty much any area of, you know, even the swamp area, there's always going to be high ground somewhere. So you need to get the Florida Trail Association. If you go on their website, they have a series of maps of each area, and they will indicate where the camps are at. So if you were to go down the swamp area down in Big Cypress, there's what we call the 7-mile camp, because it's 7 miles off the road. Then there's a 13-mile camp. And then there's Oak Hill. So there's I think 4 or 5 camps between Tamiami Trail up to I-75. They're in high ground. They're not big campsites, but they are high ground. And yes, we used to have a group. They haven't done it in a while. They would go down with hammocks and actually go down into the swamp area and sleep in hammocks over the water. And they would actually do 2 hammocks. They would have one hammock that they slept in and another hammock below them that had all their gear in it.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yes, so we do have some crazy people. Yes.
That sounds like fun, actually. That's something I've never done. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We do have a question about the ability to carry firearms for self-defense.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you the truth. When I've been out hiking on the Florida Trail out in Big Cypress by myself, I know other people do that. I don't carry a firearm. Not that I ever had a reason to or think I need. I'm more afraid of the 2-legged animals I run into out there than I am the 4-legged animals. Okay. So I've run into some strange characters that gave me pause. The 4-legged characters, I'm always excited to see them. If I see it, I've seen a panther once in all the years I've been out there, about 20 feet ahead of me, came out of the bushes as I was going down the trail, scared me to death. But once I caught my breath, what a wonderful experience it was. Okay. He looked at me, I looked at him, and he went back into the bushes. So we were done. And that's usually what happens. If you don't look fast and see what you see, you never can get a photo. They just move too fast. So.
Fantastic. And one last one that I wanted to ask. You alluded to that this is a national project and you're dealing with kind of Florida. How would somebody who is in other areas, how would they find a map of where, like you showed originally, of all those different trails?
That is on the Florida National, excuse me, that is on the Florida Trail Organization's website. Okay, once again, you go in there, there's drop down menus for maps and for different areas. And like I said, and also contact lists. So you can contact various people in different areas. So yeah, it's all there for you. And like I said, I'm happy. I put on my contact information, Happy Hoofers, which is the name of my chapter, at bellsouth.net. Please send me an email with any of your questions, or you want contact information in a certain area. I'm happy to do that for you. So I'll be able to provide
And
that.
Richard has posted the link to the Florida Trail Association on
Thank you.
this meeting, and it'll be on our website as well. Kay, we really thank you for lots of reasons. One, for the shortness that you were able to jump in and help us, assist us, but for the quality of the presentation and for the work y'all do.
Well, you're welcome. I hope you guys get out there and enjoy it. That's why we do this, to get you out there and to enjoy the environment. And maybe I was thinking maybe we'd work out something one of these days. Maybe we can take you guys out for a day hike out in Big Cypress, where it's dry, not wet, where it's dry.
And a lot of our members pack chainsaws, so
We're good, I bet.
we might be able to help.
All right.
Kay, thank you very much. Have a very good day. Feel free to stay on. Basil's going to be up next after Mike Orphanides. You're
Okay.
welcome to stay. And please feel free to join us any month, the last Thursday of any month you'd like to.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Richard, if you will bring Mike Orphanides, you are
Which
coming up.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike, we do have a number of Mikes. Start plugging in Mike Orphanides till we get the right one.
Which one that you sent? This
Um,
one to. This
while-
one?
My colleagues, that's gonna be him.
Yeah, it's this one that we want.
While Mike is coming on board, let me remind you, it is February. This is a not so subtle hint to please pay your dues. We're very reasonable. I think it's $60, and at the end of this month or something, that's when a small rise kicks in. So please get your dues paid early and often, as they say in Chicago.
Will the real Mike Orphanides please raise his hand so that we can know which one to bring in?
Or Donna, speak up for Mike. I don't know. We do have 3 mics up there. And I will say again, there was a phone number on there, so make sure as you scroll across, there, that your name is showing. That is the only way we can ensure that you get your CEUs.
I don't know which one is him.
Okay.
Just do them all.
I asked on mute on all of them. but-
So at this point, Mike, I'm sorry, we're going to move you to after Basil's
Until we
presentation.
figure out which one you are.
Hold on. So Richard, if you would, go ahead and ask Basil to.
Yeah, Basil is unmuted. He can do whatever.
So
he
Kevin,
wants.
if
All
you,
right, I'm here.
Fabulous.
Kevin is going to.
I would, is it Dr. Iannone?
Wow, yeah, yeah, congratulations. Thank you.
I-
That's wonderful. Thanks.
I'm pleasantly surprised that I got that right.
Yeah, like right out the gate there. Boom. Yeah. So the first name is Basil though, so but the last name is good. So thank you.
Got it. Well, Dr. Iannone is an assistant professor in forest resources and conservation and specializes in geospatial analysis of sustainable and resilient land development. He's also a member of the Sustainability Human and Ecological Development Group. Dr. Iannone received his PhD from the Ecology and Evolution Program, Biological Sciences at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and is currently working at the University of Florida Center for Land Efficiency and is an assistant professor there. He will be speaking with us today about some things, and I'll hand that off to you now.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see my PowerPoint presentation?
It's just come up, yes.
Okay, let me confirm. So can you see that now?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, great.
Okay,
So-
perfect.
All right, well, thank you. And thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be here. And I guess what I'm going to discuss with you today is some research that my lab group's been doing about opportunities to design and promote more environmentally beneficial urban landscaping. And while I get to tell you about what my lab group does, but I'm also interested in hearing from the members here as to how some of the research and extension work that we're involved in might serve you in helping to meet your organization's mission as well. So, I have my email there if you're interested in discussing that with me later on. Okay, so just a quick outline of the talk here. I'm going to introduce you to what our lab group does, the Residential Landscape Ecology Lab, give you some background and justification for the work. And then I'm going to discuss 2 projects that we're involved with right now. The first is, are people getting what they want from their landscaping in their yards? And then the second one is a study looking at establishing drought tolerant native landscaping under new development conditions. So as I mentioned, my lab group is the Residential Landscape Ecology Lab. We call ourselves that. And there's our missions at the bottom there. We want to increase the understanding of the ecology of residential landscapes and understand how to design and construct and manage them to enhance their ecological functionality. And the reason I'm really interested in this is because, we often think about, when we think about conservation, we think about, polar bears on ice caps and the Amazon, but really we got a lot of great stuff just right outside our back doors. And these are species that I see in my yard living right in the city of Gainesville, Florida. So we just feel that this is an opportunity, potentially a missed opportunity for conservation education that we could be providing, by educating people about what is going on in their backyards. So why residential landscapes? Well, they happen to be the fastest growing land cover type in the United States right now. There's been a 5-fold increase between 1950 and 2000. And they have this sort of commonality among them. The bottom left is a picture of the Villages in Florida, one of the fastest growing communities in the country. And the bottom right is, I don't know where that is. And the reason I'm showing that is because look at the striking similarity between those 2 landscapes. And if you go around the country, in fact, residential development often has a very similar vegetation structure and composition. It's dominated by a lawn, usually a turf grass variety, and a few shrubs or trees, oftentimes ornamental or non-native species. So that's called urban homogenization. So they tend to be more similar to each other, even across large distances, than they are to the natural ecosystems right next to them. And then, their management can also have some very large environmental impacts, such as overuse of water, overuse of fertilizers and pesticides, and not all the time, but incorrect use of these chemicals can have environmental impacts. While they're very useful in some situations, sometimes they're not being used correctly, right? So what we want to think about is, how can we design, construct, and manage these ecosystems that are expanding to instead maybe support biodiversity and provide ecological benefits? So maybe we can reimagine them as a solution to some of the problems that we're seeing. But then, of course, we have to ask, what is the barrier to adopting these more sustainable landscapes? And this is the work that my lab does. We have to make sure that if we find solutions, they're acceptable to what people want. And there is evidence we can do better with our landscapes. Here's just some quick results from my master's student, Giselle Niswander. She looked at ornamental gardens around north central Florida. And let's see, can you see my pointer now? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. What this figure shows is arthropod pest abundance, how many arthropod pests that are feeding on the plants and harming plants in relation to how far apart the plants are in a garden. And what we found is, as you have plants are more far apart, we see a very large increase in the amount of pests that feed on them. And then this is natural enemy abundance, things that eat those arthropod pests in relation to how many species of plants are in the garden. And there's an increase in the number of things that eat arthropod pests with increasing number of plants. So from that, we can come up with like simple recommendation to increase pest resistance of ornamental gardens, plant more densely and plant more species. So that's cool. That's one sort of bit of evidence that we can design gardens for pest resistance or to have some ecological benefit. And then I also want to point out that I've been working with some stakeholders, and there's evidence of growing commercial interest for something new from our urban landscapes. There's some writing on the wall. They're facing water restrictions, and they're eager for new technologies and approaches to water conservation. And I'm arguing that that is an opportunity for emerging markets. What we have here in the bottom left is it's the outside collab, and this is Cherry Lake, a very large plant producer. demonstrating an irrigation-free native landscaping. And what we have here is Brian Kanan, an urban planner. We have the green industry professional showing up to this event. And on the right, we have a developer looking at native landscaping in the villages that are actually following HOA guidelines, thinking of strategies of how to incorporate that into his development to address some of the water restrictions that they're facing. So there's an opportunity here. So I'm going to start with the first project we're working on. And the question we're really asking is, are people getting what they want from their landscapes? And I think yards are a fascinating ecosystem for me because I can look at them, and even at small spatial scales, especially communities that aren't HOAs, you can see a lot of differences between what people do in their yard, a lot of difference between what they plant, a lot of differences in how they manage, kind of their individual character shaping the ecology of their landscape that's around them. And that's a lot of fun for me to think about, just how does that affect the ecology? So we have this sort of conceptualization of how people interact in their yard. If we think about it, we have maintenance, right? What inputs and how much labor they're putting into their yard, and what's in the landscape, what's the plant community composition, how much structure is there, do they have a lot of trees, shrubs, things like that. And then there's also the ecosystem services. There's nature-based benefits that people get, such as cultural, aesthetic, utility, supporting, do they have native plants, is there wildlife habitat they're creating? And then also aspects that we looked at in the study, but I'm not going to really discuss, are soil fertility and also shade and cooling, making a comfortable environment. And we're thinking about this complex three interaction among these factors for a critical reason. We think if we understand these relationships, we can come up with landscape design and management recommendations that reduce costs and increase ecological benefits and services that people want from their yards. And also, we can start to think about the long-term versus short-term cost and benefits that landscaping practices provide to inform how we design and manage our landscapes. So we started off this study with a really great data set put together by Dr. Nick Taylor from the Program for Resource Efficient Communities. What this map shows is the different gradients of red or water usage of individual lot homeowners, outdoor water usage estimates. So we started using this data. This is municipality data from Gainesville, and we also have it for Orlando and Tampa Bay and some other municipalities across the state. And what we did was we tried to find neighborhoods that we had the H2O save data for, and also county appraisal data, which is easy to get. But we wanted to find neighborhoods where people varied in their outdoor water usage, because that was an indicator that they might be varying in how they manage their landscapes. And we also were looking for mature landscapes, so homes built after 1990, because we didn't want the differences between people's vegetation composition and structure to be related to it being a very new development versus an old development. So we were trying to control for age. We excluded rental homes from our study because people who rent homes engage very differently with their landscapes. And we excluded homes with pools just because that opens up a whole new issue with, again, it's just a different variable that we need to try to control for. So what we did is we sent out 600 survey letters to these 4 neighborhoods, and that's shown dots in red. And we asked people to reply to a survey, and we had about a 20% response rate. 116 people replied, and they gave us information on what they do and how they manage their yard and what intensity they manage their yard. From that, we selected 30. I'm sorry, my slides aren't advancing. Give me 1 second here. Oh, all right. Yeah, we found 30 homes. We sampled across 30 homes that varied in the intensity they manage their yards. And we went out there and we identified every species in their yard, plant species, in different structures in the ground layer, the shrub layer, the tree layer. We also collected soils that quantify soil fertility. We also did LIDAR data, which we're still working on analyzing to really measure the structural complexity of these yards. And then we followed up with a follow-up survey after we did this to identify what people want from their landscaping and the degree to which they felt they were getting what they want from their landscaping. So just a quick shot of the demographics. Our study initially for those 30 homes that we sampled faced something that I think many urban ecology studies face, When we looked at the demographics, we were sampling largely white people with higher education levels and higher income levels. And that is not a slice of urban living, right? This is not a true representation of the diversity of people that live and the diversity of yards in Gainesville or Florida or any city for that matter. So we wanted to try to address that. In 2021, we expanded our sampling efforts so that we ended up sending out 12 more hundred surveys across a much larger socioeconomic gradient across Gainesville, going into some more well-off and lower or lesser served communities. And we are sampled 60 more yards. And the reason we wanted to do this is because any recommendation we come away with for landscaping, we want to make sure it's equitable. That's a pillar of sustainability, right? We need to make sure whatever recommendations we come up with geared towards sustainability, that people can achieve it regardless of income status, right? Good. So we're still analyzing our last data set that we collected in 2021. So what I'm going to show you is just a smaller data set of the first 30 homes. And hopefully, I will have some data, analyses to show with all the 90 homes together. So let's just talk about some of the initial findings from our first 30 yards that we sampled. We actually found 712 unique plant species. 634 we were able to identify to species, 72 only to genus, and 6 to family. And we did work with the herbarium on this, and I do have 2 excellent undergrads who really are great at identifying plants. So why couldn't we identify so many species? Well, we're in a yard. People are mowing things, they're trampling on things, and not all the plants have the floral parts that we need to identify. So it's just kind of a operational hazard, if you will. So here's what we found for the 64 species. We broke them down to different growth forms, and whether they were native to Florida or non-native to Florida, and whether or not they were invasive. And I will cut to the chase here. What we found was that of those species, 226 of them were native. 408 of them were non-native. So we do know that native plants have benefits regarding resources for wildlife and pollinators, and not that non-native species don't have those benefits, but natives sometimes have a greater benefit. And so it seems like we could probably be doing better with enhancing our native diversity in our landscapes. But one thing that was really shocking was 58 invasive species in 30 yards. That's a lot. And these are, in fact, species that are either listed as noxious weeds or known to have ecological or economic, cause ecological or economic harm by various organizations such as the Florida Exotic Pest Plant Council and IFAS assessment. So we need to do a better job, I guess, of trying to control these invasive plants in our yards, in our residential landscapes. Okay, so that survey that we gave people, we asked them to rank things that they want out of their yards. And we didn't say, are they important? Because everyone will say everything's important. We forced them to rank them. And this shows the average ranking across the people we surveyed. So what this is a lower score actually means a higher ranking. It was ranked more highly, like as number 1, if that makes sense. So just it's opposite of what it looks like. So, all right, I know this is a heavy graph, but I'm going to walk you through it. And what it is each of these black dots shows each yard and each person and how they responded to that initial survey about how much or how intensively they managed their yard, okay? So if they're really close to one another, they're very similar in how they manage your yard. And if they're really far apart, they're different, okay? So going from left to right, we saw this trend where there's from homes in the left to the right, they increased irrigation and fertilization of their lawn and non-lawn areas. So it increases in irrigation and fertilization. So it shows an index of intensity of management going from left to right here. And I want to show the water usage. So homes on the left use less water, ones on the right use more water. So that management intensity instantly, if you remember, water conservation was one of these factors that they ranked highly. So that management intensity is kind of contradictory to what that goal of water conservation. So then we wanted to ask, okay, so people ranked aesthetics and comfortable environments, these sort of cultural ecosystem services for their yard. And we said, okay, well, are they getting that from management intensity? By this management intensity, is it helping them get that? And again, sorry, more figures, but what we asked them was the degree to which they're getting utility, they have a comfortable environment, they enjoy their yard, or aesthetics. And what we found was, in relation to management intensity, there was either a negative relationship, so they got less utility with more management intensity, less of a comfortable environment with management intensity, and management intensity did not affect the degree to which they got leisure enjoyment or aesthetics out of their yard. So then we did a similar thing with these traits that they wanted, these factors. They wanted to see native plants, they wanted wildlife habitat, they found those things to be important. And what we found was, with management intensity, native plant diversity declined. So then again, they're not getting what they want out of management intensity. And then we also looked at herbivory in the yards. We did not have the funding to quantify the arthropod and all the bugs in the yard. Again, arthropods are an indicator that the yard is actually providing resources for higher trophic levels in wildlife. So what we said was, okay, well, what we could do though is document the amount of herbivory that we're seeing in the yard. And we use this sort of ordinal system where if you're over here at 5, you got a pest that's killing your plant. You don't want that, right? Nobody wants that. We want our plants to survive. But over here, 1s and 2s, well, that means the plant could be providing a resource for important arthropods that, you know, would help to promote wildlife. And that's really what mostly what we saw in our yards was, or levels of herbivory at these lower levels. And what we found was herbivory was, we had less herbivory, a lot less herbivory with mowing frequency and also pruning intensity. So there was no benefit. And then we also asked people, hey, how often do you see wildlife in your yard? And there was actually no relationship to management intensity to wildlife observations. So again, just to wrap this up, so really what we found was, if we wanted to know the degree to which management intensity was related to these cultural services that people want, aesthetics and comfortable environment, we saw a negative relationship or no evidence that it actually helped them to achieve that goal. We saw the same thing with supporting services of like wildlife habitat and native plants. So essentially what we're seeing is there's some conflict here between how people are managing and what they say they want out of their yards. And that conflict actually provides an opportunity when we talk to certain organizations. You know, it's a gap between what people want and have. So it actually could equate to marketing and educational opportunities. Of course, we are only looking at 30 yards in Gainesville, Florida. So this is hardly something we can apply to all yards in Florida or throughout the United States or anywhere else. But it certainly raises a question of, is there a similar a gap in these other neighborhoods throughout Florida that we should try to look at? And we're certainly going to do that. My PhD student, Jesse Jones, is also working on a maintenance calculator for this project. And one of the challenges is, you know, we want to know how much it costs to maintain these different styles of landscapes. And that's really difficult because when we ask people, how much do you spend on this? They don't really know. People don't remember all the time how much they're spending on their landscapes. So we worked with green industry professionals to start this tool where we could maybe standardize and make that comparison more standard across different landscaping styles. That's a work in progress. My undergraduate student, Alyssa Malikova, is doing a really cool EDIS document. There's a lot of native plants that we found that have ecological benefits of people's lawns. And oftentimes the only thing we can find regarding these species is how to kill them, information on how to kill them. So she's writing an EDIS document to instead communicate their ecological benefit and the degree to which they don't really detract from the main function of a lawn, an area to maintain soil stabilization, for recreating, and also adds aesthetics. So, you know, they don't really detract from that function. So she's working on that document and we hope to have that out fairly soon. Another thing we really want to develop is, you know, you go and buy an appliance at a Home Depot or something, and you have an energy guide. How much this thing's going to cost you a year for your refrigerator? Well, we think it'd be really great to do that for a landscape as well. How much does this type of landscape versus another type of landscape cost you to maintain? And even what are the environmental benefits or impacts of these different styles? And to be able to put those on in new home developments for people to choose what type of landscapes they want would be a great goal. Now, of course, we have a long way to get there. We have a lot more data to collect. We need to develop some predictive models, statistical models, and guide prototypes. And then once we do that, we might come up with these great recommendations, but we need to go talk to the people who live in these yards and really find out what the barriers to adopting these approaches could be. And that was going to require some focus groups. And of course, we do want to repeat this study in future communities. So, okay. So that was a very academic project. Now I'm going to jump into a new project that we just started. It's very new, and we don't really have much data and information on it yet, but I'm going to introduce you because it's really exciting. This is a private academic partnership that is really addressing the need, again, that we're seeing from industry leaders, developers who are facing water restrictions and want new approaches for landscapes that require less water. And also our partners who see this need as an opportunity for emerging market opportunities. The project we're working on is in the land that was owned by Deseret Ranch. This is over 300 acres of ranch land in Florida. It actually yields more cattle per acre than Wyoming, which was shocking to me because I didn't grow up in Florida. I had no idea how big ranching was in Florida until I moved here. And I did live out west for a while, so I was kind of surprised to hear that it gives Wyoming a run for its money. And these are our people we're working with: Tavistock Development Company, Cherry Lake, a very large plant producer in north central Florida. Life Soils, a company who is trying to look at strategies for mitigating the damages to soils that development occurs and try to improve soil health in urban landscapes to improve plant health. I'm also collaborating with Patrick Bowling from UCF on this, and then the Nature Conservancy is also paying attention to this project as well because they think could be a model moving forward of more sustainable development practices. So the project that we're working on is happening here in the Sunbridge area. And here is the proposed development plan. And the developer Tavistock reached out to the Program for Resource Efficient Communities at University of Florida. And they really wanted some help. First, they were facing water restrictions on how much water they could use for establishing landscapes and maintaining landscapes. And second, they said, we have these really beautiful, pristine lakes next to this development, and they want to make sure their development practices aren't impacting these lakes because, well, these are amenities for the residents that are moving into these communities, and also for Floridians in general. These are going to be hopefully something that we enjoy for ever. And so, of course, landscaping practices can affect water quality if we're not careful, right? If we use over fertilize or do, things poorly or design our stormwater drainage poorly, it's all connected and it can be affecting these lakes. So that's where this sort of collaboration stemmed from. So as an ecologist, one of the go-to answers I always say is, well, let's start thinking about how we can use native drought-tolerant plants that don't require fertilizer or don't require irrigation once established, so we can help to eliminate that need or potential for fertilizer runoff that might occur, and these sorts of challenges, and also really address the water restrictions that they're facing, and also enhance the biodiversity of our urban landscapes that we live. Okay, and here's just some of the plant species that are growing in the natural areas around there and that we thought could be useful in this sort of development. And I know everyone, probably half of you probably are like shaking your heads because that ship has sailed, right? What we're dealing with is not the natural habitat where these plants used to grow in, right? And I'm very well aware of that. And I mean, that ship has sailed, and this is the development practices going on. They clear out the area, they bring in sterile fill, and they fill it in to help with grading the site. And now you have just a sterile, really compacted, lousy soil condition. And it's challenging to grow any plants in, right? So this is one of the challenges we faced in this project and in most development projects. So the developers have this conceptual entryway called the base camp. And they want this to be the entryway to the development that kind of communicates to a would-be home buyer what sort of development, what sort of lifestyle you'll have living here. It's kind of an interesting concept. They have an event lawn here where they'll host events, maybe small concerts. They have some, an organic, they want to do some sort of gardening back here, some community gardens, and maybe have a little bit of a local agricultural operation going on. And they also have this sort of like, they want to show an active lifestyle because they're near some nice hiking trails and outdoor areas. This is a pump track for BMX biking. So we were looking at that area and they said, well, we could use this area. And we talked them into doing something that's, I think, is really novel. Setting up a landscape feature, not just to be attractive and show off plant material and make the place look nice, but to set it up as a replicated experiment. So we're blending landscape design with manipulative experimentation. And to me, this is just really exciting. I've done this in the context of ecological restoration and natural environments, but we've never done this in the context of a landscape feature. And this is quite a large feature too. This is, for scale, this is about 450 feet long here, and these plots are 20 by 30 feet. So it's a fairly large feature. And we wanted to look at here and identify the native plant species that could thrive in this new residential development. We wanted to look at and identify irrigation and soil amendment strategies that could improve the establishment of these native plants. And given that this is a public area, we can also get public perception data about people and, hey, are you going to be okay with this style of landscaping in your yard, for example, right? Because, hey, we might find the greatest thing to solve the water conservation issue. I'm very sorry about that. My phone's ringing. I thought my volume was turned down. We thought we would find, we might find a really useful solution, but if the public doesn't like it, we have to go back to the drawing board. And then we also wanted to know about how this affects pollinators and ground dwelling beetles. There are two key indicators of the ecological services that landscapes and natural areas provide. So knowing this we could inform landscape designs in the future land development areas. We could demonstrate the feasibility of this potential landscaping style. We also thought it would be an opportunity to increase native plant diversity and native biodiversity in the urban landscapes where we live. And we wanted to also think of strategies for eliminating irrigation and fertilizer needs just for water conservation and protection. We have, Florida has water challenges it's facing, and we need to start really thinking about how we address those challenges. And then we thought, if we could use this and show and demonstrate these are feasible strategies, and of course, this is setting a precedent for future land development and codes. And also, we have 3 graduate students currently working on this project, possibly a 4th. And that's great for me for research and publications, which I have to do for my job. But really, more importantly, I think it's training a researcher and an ecologist to work in land development context under this sort of unique academic private partnership. We need people trained in that to move this needle forward, in my opinion. So. Okay, so what is the design? We have 16 plots out there. They're 20 by 30 feet long or wide. That's the dimensions, 20 by 30 feet. And they're numbered here, each of the plots. And here you can see this design trail system. And it's not as square as this picture shows. I'll show you pictures of the plantings here in a second. And what we did is we established 2 different irrigation strategies. Irrigate as needed. These are treatments where we would eventually wean off the irrigation once the plants are established and see if we can really push the envelope to an irrigation-free landscape. And then the other one was an regular irrigation schedule. And this was kind of the lazy person's approach to irrigation. Let's just turn on the irrigation once every week or once every 2 weeks, whether it's needed or not, to ensure that the plants get irrigation. And we talked to the developers, and we also talked to some of the landscaping people in Cherry Lake, and they thought these were feasible strategies that would occur realistically in an urban landscape. And then we also added, we had treatments with compost or not compost from life soils. And the compost here is intended to put organic matter back into the soil to help improve the growing conditions for the plants. We've had some benefits. We've seen some benefits of it from prior investigations. And also with water holding capacity of the soils, it improves that. So it can help limit the need for irrigation. So just again, trying to identify approaches to get different plant palettes established under these soil conditions. What we're doing is we're measuring plant survivorship and growth. We're going to get public perception data. Again, we're going to get data on pollinators and ground dwelling beetles. That's how much biodiversity do these things support. We're also going to measure aspects of soil fertility. And we're also going to keep records of irrigation and maintenance, right? So, okay, we need to understand how much water it takes to maintain these landscapes, but also maintenance, right? If it takes so much time to maintain these landscapes, that's also a deal breaker. We need to know how to address that challenge. And then finally, we want to look at pest and herbivory as well, like how much pest damage is going on here. Okay. So to give you a visualization of what this place looked like before the planting, if you go from east to west here in this design, that's what you're looking at here. And from north to south, that's what you're looking at here. So you can see these wooden stakes are marking out our plots. And this is my PhD student, Brooke Moffish. She's a county extension agent in Lake County, trying to get initial soil cores so we can confirm by the fact of how hard it is for her to get a soil core that this is in fact our standard construction quality soil, compacted from heavy equipment, very challenging for plants to grow in. One thing we found that was really interesting though is we had this vision where oftentimes I do at least, where sterile fill that we bring into land development for grading that site for raising up home foundations and whatnot tends to be homogeneous sterile soil. And we found that that wasn't the case, at least for pH. It varied considerably, going from 5.1 up to 8.1. So again, affecting the potential for different types of plants. And so when we see this fill going out onto our land development sites, we can't assume that it's homogeneous and the same type of soil throughout. It's something we have to consider moving forward. So this shows us, and I say us, I mean Darren Midland, the president of Life Soils, tilling in this compost. The plots that had compost, here they are, and here to control for. An interesting thing is we're tilling this into the soil. Okay, so the plots that didn't get the compost by experimental design principles, we have to control for that tilling effect in case it also has an effect on growth of the plants. So he actually tilled in the plots, tilled the plots that also didn't have the compost. So you can see the treatment here. Here's a plot that doesn't have compost versus one that does. We're testing 28 different landscaping plant species. Some of you have been used before, such as your pond hollies. Others have been used, but maybe they're not as used as frequently. And we also have some on the back burner in case some of the ones we want to use don't work out. And the idea here is that, hey, we're going to test these plants, see if we can, Cherry Lake's interested in them, because if they work under these conditions and they thrive well and they do well, then this is something that, nurseries and should maybe start investigating how to start producing these plant species for our expanding urban landscapes. Again, marketing opportunities. So we installed in-ground irrigation. You can see that here. There is consensus among the group that that would be the best for water conservation in general, regardless of the irrigation treatment. And it would also help us to keep track of how much water is being utilized in each of these plots. And this shows the planting after it's completed. They use pine mulch as a mulch in between for weed control in between the different plantings. And here's this walking trail going through the plantings. This is at the one corner. And here's just another picture of the planting. It was completed in January 2022. So this is a really brand new study. We haven't really even collected much data on it. We have soil samples sitting in a freezer that we haven't analyzed yet. But again, you can see that walkway going through here. We're excited about that because we can, this provides an opportunity for would-be home buyers to walk through the landscape and for us to get information from them about, hey, what would you think of this in your yard as a way for, biodiversity and conservation of water, and do you approve of it? So the next steps here were Kane and Associates, a urban planner, and Dix Height, a landscaping architect firm, started contributing. There was the first development portion of this phase is Westland Park, it's called. And they wanted to build 12 model homes, and they did build 12 model homes. They're in the process of doing that. And what they designed for these 12 model homes was actually drought tolerant native plants and absolutely no lawn, no turf grass. And they said, you know, there's other areas of the community where people can enjoy the lawn, and they still build in areas for recreation in the yard, but they were interested in seeing, can we push the needle and just do it and have a lawn-free area that doesn't require as loud machinery and equipment to show up for mowing. So they came up with these designs, and we thought that would be something that would be installed into the landscapes, and we were all very excited about that. That's a great opportunity, right? To try something out and see if would-be home buyers would actually do that. We learned an important lesson though. The builder, when they purchased the lot, and this is something I'm learning, you know, working with developers has been a really educational opportunity for me. Working with developers, I learned that once the builder buys the lot, there is no actual legal obligation for them to build the landscape that the developer wanted installed in there. So the builder took some liberties and they installed some grass here in their lots instead of that lawn-free design. Now, that being said, we don't know what species it is. We don't know if there's irrigation. This is a hiccup that just developed last week, actually. We're just still trying to figure it out. We think this is Bahia grass that is very drought tolerant, but has, you know, its management challenges like other turf grass does, or all plants do for that matter. But there is a lot of non-turf area in these residential areas, but not in the common areas. We're using the lawn. So this was kind of a hiccup for us. But nonetheless, there is a lot of drought tolerant native species that we can see in here. We need to get the exact species list. And on the bright side, yes, that was a pun intended, trying to be humorous. These are solar panels, right? So this is something that the builders and the developers went with kind of last minute. They want these homes to be solar. So that's a step in the right direction for sustainability. Anyway, so we're still trying to figure out the next steps on this. The goal here, though, is we see an opportunity working with this developer to look at our standard landscape. Right near this development site is a Del Webb community with very standard landscaping. Turf grass, irrigated a lot with a few shrubs, ornamental plants, not very many. And right next to it also is some really nice Florida natural areas. And what we're thinking is, okay, if we were to get this developer to start to install in these more native landscapings, this garden that we have, some of these model homes, if we were to start to get them to do a different model or reimagine, these homes are from the villages. These homeowners converted their yards to irrigation-free landscaping, native landscaping plants, and that meet HOA regulations, and the people love them. And if we were to say reimagine, we could get the model homes to adopt this at a stronger capacity, we had the long opportunity for long-term research to really understand the different benefits and costs of this type of landscaping approach versus our more traditional approach, and also perception. Okay, so again, we're hoping that this collaboration informs landscaping design, helps to increase native biodiversity, limits irrigation of fertilizer, sets a precedent for future land development and codes. And again, I think one of the most exciting things is we're going to have some trained individuals looking at extension and research in the context of this private academic partnership that we need to start moving along if we want these things to happen. Again, this is a multi-phase development, so we do have opportunities to adjust, long-term collaboration. We have the ability to affect tens of thousands of homes on this project. 76,000 residents are planned to move in here, so lots of education opportunities. So in the end, is there opportunity to design ecologically beneficial residential landscapes? And I'm sure many of you on the call or in this say, well, yes, there is. But we're also seeing evidence that there's a disconnect between management and desired ecosystem services. So there's educational and marketing opportunities that we could maybe pursue. Of course, again, we have to make sure that that gap exists in other locations besides Gainesville, other, South Florida, other regions of Florida. There are industry leaders promoting change due to some of the challenges they're facing. They want to try new approaches. Of course, we hit a little bump in the road there with the model homes, but it's still a step in the right direction, and we're still collaborating. There's opportunities for emerging markets that we see from Cherry Lake plant producers, these soil people who want to do mitigation of soils, They're emerging markets that can contribute to the sustainability of our landscapes. And again, it goes back to the academic private partnerships, the importance of that. So, so we're really excited about this project, and I hope to, we will have some results eventually, but not yet. So, thank you. I happy to hear everyone's questions on this. Sorry, I wasn't able to see the chat during my talk, so thanks.
Uh-oh,
Oh,
uh-oh,
What did you just do?
I don't know.
Click on Zoom.
What happened?
No, nothing, nothing, you're
Don't
fine.
leave.
Okay,
You can start your video.
Slip of the click. I don't know. I was afraid I lost everybody on the whole thing.
Oh no, I'm still here. Yeah. I can keep the slides up if you want on the questions, but I just can't see
Oh,
the
right.
I can't see the questions coming in the chat then.
Well, you can go back to your smiling face. I think that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. Well, first of all, thank you. That is extremely good information that you and your group are working on. Couple comments that have come in, and a couple that I had as well. When on your last one, taking the second part of the presentation first, when you alluded to the programs of the developers and the builders, what is put together, what you all were able to influence, and then we're anticipating going on out in the landscape, and then at the last minute it got changed. I got to tell you now, it's different, maybe county to county, but in South Florida, the cities still have a fair amount of say over what goes in. There's codes, of course, there's municipal codes that say, here's the minimum landscape that has to be on this piece of property for whatever it is zoned for and whatever we are allowing to be developed there. And that was my job, and a lot of people that are also in the Zoom meeting, that is their job as well, either inspectors, urban foresters, or even people that are drawing up the plans they draw to the code design, et cetera, et cetera. Once that has gone through the DRC process and that landscape plan has been approved, it gets city commission approval on it. And it's not quite etched in stone, but it's not easy to just go in and make changes. It is not something that is up to the whim of the developer or the builder or anybody else to make changes on. There's a whole pecking order. I can speak from just my years with the city of Sunrise that that plan is put together, it is stamped, and that is what's expected to be out there. If there is going to be a change, which could be due to availability of plant materials, due to underground utilities, whatever the case is, relocation, such things, then there's a whole process that goes from the contractor that's putting it in, goes back through the landscape architect, who then comes up with some alternate plans, submits it to the city, and the city approves it, and then it goes out. We really, at least in South Florida or City of Sunrise and other cities I'm familiar with, wouldn't have somebody come in and say, we're anticipating X, and they come in with Y. That wouldn't fly, and I'm surprised to hear it did in the county you were.
Yeah, no, thanks for that comment. And I agree, there's, obviously there's different, and this is one of the complexities of this, not just the plant material, the ecology and the partnerships, the codes vary from region to region and place to place. And this is actually, my understanding of it is this development is the Sunbridge Taxing Authority. So it's got its own authority, and I don't understand the governmental structure of this location just yet, but it's something that myself with the Program for Resource Efficient Communities we've talked about, and we said, look, moving forward, the next time we do this, we need to also be in touch with the developer, understand what this flow of chain of command, because like when I think about it, it blows my mind. I'm like, why did the developer, why did like Tavistock, the company, why did everybody who's been working on this project come up with this really innovative approach, only to know there could be a bottleneck right at the builder? Like, why wasn't that addressed? Like, that was kind of, and we're still learning the kinks of that. And that's part of the partnership. And there wasn't anything malicious about it. Either was, it was just an unexpected thing. And, hey, we're learning, we're all learning from it. But there are, I agree. And this is something that I think moving forward, we have to really understand the codes and laws and regulations in every place that we go involved with. So, yeah, good points.
I think as in most things, the line follow the money would lead you to why the changes were made.
Well, no, it is. It's compartmentalization of these procedures, right? We're trying to maximize the benefit, the profit at this stage, maximize the profit at the next stage. And there is these compartmentalizations, and there needs to be like a breaking down of this and thinking about, and so what we were envisioned was if we really push the envelope and these model homes were installed with these really just novel landscapes, and we went to the home buyer, the would-be home buyer, and said, this could be your landscaping package for X amount of dollars, but more that you bundle into your mortgage. But you will have these benefits. You will have, long-term savings. That's why that cost calculator that we've been trying to develop could be useful. I'm going to change it so I can see the text here. So no, that's that compartmentalization of profit is something. It's a challenge. Yeah. Absolutely.
Understand, because different people pass through, the person who originally owns the piece of property, once they sell, they want their chunk of money and they're kind of out of it. And if the developer comes in or the builder comes in, and as you're saying, compartmentalization, and that's a good term, they move on and move out, they're looking to take those dollars and invest them somewhere else. The long-term users of that piece of property, be they commercial, residential, or some mixed use, is the one that I hear what you're saying need to be invested. And from my view, I think the group you could best get that from are the cities and municipalities, because they're the ones in the end that's looking out for their future residents or their future business owners to be able to say, hey, long term, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, we want this to be a better business and a better neighborhood. They're the ones that could more likely help you than anybody else that's just kind of passing through.
Yeah, then like I said, this development has been set up in its way where it's its own taxing authority. That's kind of a new thing to me, because it was Deseret Ranch at one time, owned by the Mormon Church, and now it's its own taxing authority, which is something that that's beyond my knowledge. These are things that I'm really learning about in urban ecology that I probably realistically never wanted to learn about, but have to, you know what I mean? So I saw somebody in there chat about reaching out about following my research. I'm going to put my lab's web link in there for everybody, and feel free to just reach out to me with any questions, or my other lab members as well.
And Donna, who you might have heard speak before, Donna ran her own business down here for a number of years, and she's voiced something we hear a lot, and that is that there are not a great availability of some of the native plants and some of the ones that fit in, because there's not a quote need for them. There's not a sale for them. So if they don't grow them, there's nobody that uses them. If nobody uses them, nobody grows them, and it's the chicken and the egg, but it keeps squishing down till you have the same 10 available plants that are out there. So we're trying to look for ways to expand that. And again, that could come on from people like you that say, hey, here's the advantages of these new and different plants, and from cities and other municipalities saying you must use X number of natives. And when it comes to the reviewers saying, these are what we want via strength from our code, this is what we kind of demand and require in the landscape.
Yeah, and this is why Cherry Lake they started their business in citrus. I think some of the freezes knocked back their business, and they went into shrubs and tree productions, and now working with them, and then also with Mark Gotch from like Green Isle Nursery, we're starting to try to explore what, hey, we don't even understand how to grow native plants. You know what I mean? It's amazing to me that we have this beautiful ecology of Florida, and we don't know natural history such as like how to get a seed to germinate, right? I mean, these are things that we don't know. So the fact that somebody's trying to scratch the surface to that bottleneck is something I really want to contribute to as much as possible, because it's very real. We run into this restoration ecology as well, trying to restore native plants. We don't even know the first thing, oftentimes we just don't even know how to get them to germinate. But, it's an amazing sort of like need to understand biology of these species and to feed into the production line as well. So, yeah.
That kind of goes back to a question John Harris had put on there, and he was saying, what about in the redevelopment end? I mean, I know from my experiences, it's always less expensive for a developer to come into a virgin territory and tear into it. At some point, cities in South Florida are running out of virgin territories, and they're going to go back and look at redevelopment of some of these other areas. We will have a little bit of a different opportunity because there will be some soil development over the years since the redevelopment. Given any thought to, is that a separate way? We're gonna have to look and say, okay, for those communities that have been there for 20, 30 years, we go about it differently.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that. We've been approaching the master plan communities because we want to get in front of the ball before it starts rolling on us, if you will. We want to tackle the problem up front. But you're right, we have all these existing communities that are, using excessive water. And when you see the numbers of gallons being used on some lawns, it's like, this is certainly not the right plant for the right place, or we need to change our perception about what's okay for a lawn. Let's go back to that sort of green style of lawn that we just mow the stuff that grows, right? I mean, the old neighborhoods in Gainesville are fine with that. And that's the type of lawn I grew up with. Of course, I'm showing my age probably, but so there's different things we can do, but that's something we haven't tackled. And it's really challenging because there's obviously, everyone here probably knows, there's HOA regulations that are like moving a boulder up a hill. There's, perceptions of people who live in these communities who expect to see a certain type of landscape. So that's something that we haven't tackled yet. I will say one thing, we are working with redeveloping stormwater ponds, trying to incorporate native plants into those. And we see that as an opportunity as well to maybe educate people about re-envisioning what an urban landscape looks like, at least in that area. Maybe, who knows, maybe that's something they take away to their yard or something. That's a big challenge though, because one person at a time, one community at a time versus like us, where we're trying to get a master plan community to adopt something. It's a lot of risk to address the master plan community. The development's going to happen whether I'm working with them or not. It's a big risk, but the reward can be very big. Working with those individuals, it's really challenging to make change individual behaviors. But one thing I will say is that we do know from ecological research that what your neighbor does influences behaviors. You know what I mean? So that I don't know if we can start to seize on that. And that's something that this is why I work with social scientists as well. Like, because there's things I don't really know much about, right? So yeah, I think they're going to be a huge help with us trying to push the needle in the existing landscapes.
One of the hangups you may find, and I don't want to throw cold water on you, but again, here in South Florida, we have some rules that fit into what you're saying, and that is the first half inch of water of a rain event must remain on a property. So that is good, and it encourages some dry retention and wet retention and et cetera, et cetera. That is a good thing because at least it can't be built on. It's not like build it and push all the water off. So there is some ability for wet areas. The difficulty we've run into in the past is trying to use those, kind of get a mixed community out there to say, okay, you've got this area. Wow, wouldn't a cypress tree or a pond apple fit great in there? And the water management district, which is outside of the municipalities, says basically, no, we don't want that. They view a tree in a wet retention almost like, hey, here's our glass of water, here's the volume that it can hold. And that's what we've calculated. You put a tree in there, it's a lot like sticking your finger in the glass of water. You've displaced this water. Horticulture, you can talk to them till you're green in the face and try and explain the transpiration and everything else. No, they have not been receptive to that in the past. So hopefully people like you can come in and explain.
We're just we're starting to scratch the surface, working with Manatee County up, in the Tampa Bay watershed, who wanted to just say they wanted to address the water quality issues there in some way. And they approached us and said, we're willing to spend $50,000 a year on planting stormwater ponds. And we jumped all over that to get some research. And we got a smallish EPA grant funded to look at public perception and the benefits of that for water quality. Because we don't know if there's benefits for it for water quality at these, but we're learning that. So that, again, small steps. Agreed. Yeah.
I've got one. I want to go back to your first part when you were talking about kind of the use of trying to implement more native plants and things into rural or residential landscape, urban landscapes. a couple of years ago, we had Dr. Frank Ridgely from Zoo Miami as one of our speakers at the seminar, and his passion is bats. And,
Okay.
he got everybody very excited and was amazing how easily bats can be incorporated. I mean, they're already there, but you can incorporate housing for bats kind of out of the way. And Gainesville has a phenomenal interaction with bats. Have you given any thought or been able to do any work with trying to get bat houses?
No, I haven't. I mean, I have one in my own backyard that has never been populated yet, but no, that's, you know, wildlife is a little bit tricky because the scale we're working at the yard level isn't really sufficient enough, you know, for certain wildlife like birds. I've been interacting with Mark Hosteller. He's a bird biologist, and I keep trying to get him to like say, hey, come on, let's look on board. And he's like saying, but you're operating at a yard scale. That's not enough. We need to think neighborhood scale or bigger if we're thinking about birds. And I don't know about bats, but I used to work with bats for 2 summers in Colorado in an urban environment. And they use a huge range. Like, I mean, they will travel like 20 miles in one night to go feed and come back. And that was amazing to us to see how far they travel. So in order to assess what things we do, the first thing I'm doing is, that's why I'm focusing on arthropods. I see them as like the base of a food web, right? If we see that arthropod diversity increase and the biomass or the abundance of these arthropods increase, that's an indicator that we might have some benefit to the higher trophic wildlife. But no, I haven't done anything with bats, but it's definitely would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
If we, especially, I mean, the work we did in the city of Sunrise, we kind of tried to keep it off the radar because there's just a natural feature from a lot of residents when you talk about bats. But if you can get it out there and you can get them up, and the bats keep on their own and everything, we found it to be potentially a huge benefit. So
yeah, no, it's great. And I do want to comment one thing. I don't want to make it sound like I'm anti non-native species. Okay, I'm not. My wife works at a nursery, and we have lots of beautiful non-native plants in our yard, and I think they're great for enhancing aesthetics. They also, some of them attract hummingbirds. I mean, they do attract wildlife, some of them, but so I don't want to say that I don't want anyone to have the perception that I'm anti non-native plants, because I know, and of course, like horticulture, yeah, I love to eat, so there's the right plant for every place, but I think incorporating more native plants can be beneficial as well. So yeah.
agreed. And many people on here, the Florida friendly yards and neighborhoods,
Yep.
we're involved with that. And one of the ideas that they like to promote, and I do agree with hearing what you're saying, hey, when you're talking to your birder, saying, wow, a yard is only a yard. I think when you look at the Florida friendly yard, what they're trying to say is, yes, however, if we have a yard here and 100 yards away or whatever it is, we have somebody else, so every 5th house or every 10th house, once we get enough, because of the feeding range, then the birds can live with that.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a good point. We need to understand the critical mass that we need to really have that benefit. And I'm not sure we have that understanding yet, but it certainly, it makes sense. The more we have, the better it's going to be. Yeah, absolutely.
That's true.
Great.
Well, I thank you super very much for your presentation. Excellent job. We also applaud your work. If there's anything the landscape inspectors can do for you, please feel free to reach out. You have our contact information. Please reach out to us. We look forward to hearing from you updates in the future. If there's anything we can do, let us know.
Oh, and vice versa. If you please reach out to me if there's anything you think my lab group can help you meet your missions and whatnot. So I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation. And yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, are you out there?
Yes, I am. I just can't seem to start my video. I need you to enable me to be seen.
Funny is.
Yeah.
No.
Let's see. Mike, there are a couple mics. You're having a split personality day.
We just need to know which one you are.
Which one of these?
Oh, he's up there.
The Greek one.
He's the
Raise your hand.
He's the only one with the mic open.
Here's.
Yeah, he's the only one with the mic open, so there should be.
All right, so our minute with Mike, and Mike, you've got 5, so go for it, sir.
All righty. Well, it's good to be here today, guys. I'm still not, oh, there we go. Okay. I know Donna is on the call as well, a great speaker we have with Basil, and the earlier one as well. I apologize if you, I know you called out for me between speakers. I was summoned to the Kind Garden because the Kind Gardens won a 2022 Legacy Award, and they won that award a few years back, and they won it again. So I was summoned to go out there and kind of, I was a photo op, I guess. Judy Paul was there and Rose Butman and whatnot. But anyway, it was a real privilege. I've worked with that as a volunteer for a number of years, and so it was something I just had to do. So, and if you haven't been to the Kind Garden, it's here on our UF IFAS campus out by the Hurricane House, showcasing the benefits of using native plants to support native habitats as opposed to invasive exotics, which is a whole nother story. I know I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to run down a quick grocery list as a hello from Extension. What's going on over there? Yes, we are open. We are doing in-person and Zoom classes. Just depends on the class and the size and all of that, but we do have our Eventbrite website. Donna is great at keeping that current, and you can sign up and register for classes based on what's available, which continue to include the mainstay of our basic and advanced tree trimming classes in English and Spanish, our GIBMP, and our pesticide applicator training classes. But a few new things coming down the pike. We're going to be doing some education on grades and standards. As you well know, the grades and standards for both hardwoods and palms has been revised and is in, I'm told, the final stages prior to it being rolled out by the Department of Ag. So, in fact, just within another hour or two, I'm going to be heading up to Orlando to do a palm short course with some of our new palm faculty. We're kind of put this on the road, and my subject is palm grading, which I've recently, I think, begun to feel proficient at. It's not something we've focused on much with the inspectors over the years, but I think that's something we need to start doing. And in addition, there'll be some changes to the grades and standards for hardwood trees as well. Also, I have a new co-worker, John Roberts, not the Supreme Court Justice. He's a young extension agent. And Henry and I are working with him he's in Palm Beach County. Of course, Henry's in Dade County. And we're going to be putting on some tri-county lunch and learns. Those were popular a few years back with John's predecessor, Bill Shaw, who kind of spearheaded that. We worked with Bill on that. We're going to be doing something similar, sort of some CEU programs for over the lunch hour with a very minimal registration fee starting in April. I am also pursuing with the state office and Donna Florida Friendly Landscaping certification for commercial folks, so that you attend a few online trainings, and then you come for a half-day in-person orientation, and then you earn a certificate to be a Florida Friendly Landscape certified professional. We do have that, for homeowners and whatnot, and that will enable you as a commercial person to design, build, install, and be evaluated on for certification, in terms of the different job sites that you might be working on. Just a couple of other things. Last month, William, you were very gracious about allowing me some time to talk about the preemption of our tree trimmer ordinance, which fell victim to some Tallahassee legislative work that passed last year. And so our tree trimmer ordinance in Broward County that we've had for over 20 years will be sunsetting July 1st of 2023. That's not this summer, that's next year, 2023, July 1st. So after that point in time, there will be no license required from Broward County to trim trees for hire. So anticipating that we will have a number of new folks coming into the tree trimming industry, many of them probably minimally trained, if at all. We're going to offer what we call, and this is one of the city's suggestions, it's going to be tree abuse traffic school. So, like when people get a traffic violation, they have to be sent to traffic school. This is going to replace our tree trimmer classes, and it'll probably be a little shorter, a little different, a little focus on safety, as well as preventing, recognizing, and avoiding tree abuse. But I am really interested in getting a steering committee together of people from the cities who might want to help me design that class. That you can then send people to as you bust them for hat racking and other forms of tree abuse. It'll be a place they can go to at least learn a little bit about what they did wrong and why and how to avoid it in the future. Last but not least, because I see it's rapidly approaching 3 o'clock, FNGLA, our local Broward chapter, a bunch of great folks, are working on a youth career night that was supposed to be in February initially when we talked about it, but the school board said because of COVID, we needed to postpone it. It's not a dead deal, though. We are still hoping to have youth career night in April. The date is still somewhat being debated, but this would be an opportunity for high school age youth who are interested in horticulture, anything related to a career in the green industry, to come probably here on our IFAS campus some evening in April and listen to several different presentations from industry folks like yourselves. And so I'm looking to get a few volunteers to come speak to the youth for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, just short little presentation about your job, how you do it, what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and if, you know, how they might want to prepare themselves for a career in this field. And of course, this is such a broad field, there's many different ways to go, but to kind of open their eyes and for them to see, you know, people actually doing this, earning a living, putting food on the table and enjoying the work that they do. So let me know if you are interested in being a participant or a presenter at Youth Career Night. Okay. I don't really have anything else to add. Donna, if you're still on, did you want to say anything?
You know, I reached out to Don in between, Mike, and she said no, but so she posted.
Okay.
Her
Okay,
link
that's
for newsletter.
absolutely fine. So anyway, that's it for me. Again, please reach out if you're interested in being on the committee to help develop Tree Traffic School and FNGLA Youth Career Night. Thanks for the opportunity and stay well.
Thank you.
Mike, while we have you right here, don't want to forget about the potential for the certification class we're talking about. I don't know if there's anybody who is on the West Coast on the call today, but we're shooting for a Tampa certification virtual course, followed by an in-person grading course. We found that the in-persons are really effective. When Mike's there with the guy, with people, it really goes well, and we get a lot better results on our certification exam. For those of you who don't know, the certification exam is very heavily skewed now towards making sure that people understand grades and standards, because as landscape inspectors, this may be the most important thing that any one of us does. So with that being said, we're working with hopefully Hillsborough County Extension to try to get that going, looking at a March or a late March start. So if there is any interest in that, or you know anybody on the West Coast who would like to take advantage of that, we're trying to work it out right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Thanks,
Michael, thank you.
You bet. Be well.
You out there, and I don't know where we are, but it's after 3. So everyone have a great month. Richard has already put up to sign up for next month. Please, you know, sign up in advance, get on board. And I will remind you one more time, it's super important to pay your dues and participate in LIAF as best you can. Thank you all. Have a great month.